So it's Earth Day today, and it's time to go outside and enjoy the outdoors for a little while. It's supposed to rain later today, so this is a good time to come out and explore. I'm going to be pulling some more honeysuckle from down in the valley below my house, so I need to show you what tools I'm going to have to use to do this job. So tool number one, decent pair of gloves. Those are some cheap grip gloves, but they got a good coating on them. You can see some of the parts, the coating's actually worn off. I've used them so heavily, but you need a decent pair of gloves, preferably something that'll do a grip. And then you need a bag. I use a tarp so it doesn't tear. Then you need some kind of a tool, a little shovel, a hatchet or something to cut plants that are too big to pull up. I use it's called a camp knife, but it's good for cutting vines off of trees and things. So I'm going to go ahead and mount the camera on my chest strap, and I will take a walk down in the woods. I'll be back on in just a second. So this is where I'm about to walk. This is the landscape below my house, and I have to walk this several times a year. It's kind of a hike. There's no trail, but you just have to plunge into the woods. There's no trail, so you just have to kind of take a walk. But I do this because the valley will get overgrown with stuff if you don't kind of patrol it. It's sort of like a garden. And one of the first plants I need to show you is right here on the ground. My shadow's in the way. They're growing here. See if I can get the camera on there. And I got the root. So this plant comes from China. It was introduced as a plant that you would buy it at a nursery for landscaping in your yard. And no one knew that they were going to be so invasive like they are, and so they spread from people's yards into the woods. And so they're advancing. They're everywhere in the St. Louis metropolitan area. This is what's growing in the woods, and it makes the woods look like a jungle. This little plant here will grow up to about 10 or 15 feet tall, and it will shade the ground out so that no other plants can grow on the forest floor here. And so then you lose your food chain when you've lost the light at the forest floor. So this is all about invasive species control. This is what you have to do. Controlling invasive species is work. It's money. It takes time to do this kind of thing. But if I don't do this kind of thing, this landscape would be completely taken over. You can see in the distance the green vegetation. That's all honeysuckle. And so they don't have the plants growing on the forest floor that I do. This camera doesn't give good resolution, but I'm walking over thousands of plants right now underneath my feet. And this valley, like this one right here, for example, this is called oxalis or wood sorrel. That wouldn't even exist here if it was for not for the clearing here. The valley here was kept clear by the previous owners, and so I just keep up the project. I just periodically walk down here and I pull the plants out that are going to be invasive, and I take them up. You can't just pull them up and lay them on the ground, because they'll grow into more plants. So I don't see any honeysuckle right through here. It looks like I got them all. Some of these smaller plants that are growing here, that's not honeysuckle. It actually looks like a barberry, which is also another invasive species, but it will not take over. The honeysuckle, the problem is, it will literally take over the valley and kill all the other species. And what I'm trying to do is to keep a level playing field down here so that everybody has a chance to grow. With a healthy food chain, here's another honeysuckle here. So that's another example of a small honeysuckle there. And here's another one here. Let's see if I can get this camera positioned a little bit better. Right there. There's another baby one right there. And there's another one growing here right in front of me. This one. Okay, so here's three of them. I try to knock the soil off the roots as much as possible. And I bag them up. you lay them on the ground, of course, like I said, they grow back. So you got to bag them up and carry them out. So I'm almost down to the bottom here. Sometimes I run into box turtles. Occasionally I'll run into a snake. And the ground right here, you can probably not see it, but the ground is just covered in plants. That looks like smartweed. It's hard to say, but smartweed's also an invasive species, but it will not take over the valley. You'll notice light is hitting the forest floor here, and so all the plants have a chance to sprout up now. I'll walk up to the honeysuckle up ahead, and you'll notice when I get there, the plants. There's not many plants on the forest floor like there are here. Oh, here's another honeysuckle. You see, I didn't get the whole root on that one, and that's where sometimes you need a shovel or a knife to cut into the ground. That's why I bring the camp knife, but this time I got most of it. Here's a bunch growing right underneath the tree here. They usually grow underneath the tree. I said in another video, birds eat the red berries that honeysuckle makes, and then when they digest the berries, they don't digest the seeds inside, and the seed then comes out in their poop. And when they're sitting on a tree branch and they go poop, they drop the seeds right down onto the ground, and there they grow. So here's a couple of them here. And I'm getting to the edge of my property. There's a pink stake on the log there. I had to put that there so I knew how far my jurisdiction goes. But on this Earth Day, it's a great day to be down here walking around. I don't see any box turtles today. I've seen them down here in the very bottom, walking around sometimes, but not this morning. You can see now, I'm right at the edge of a wall kind of a vegetation. So this is what happens if you don't pull up your honeysuckle. And if you look underneath, there's absolutely nothing growing in there except other baby honeysuckles. There's no oxalis, there's no baby dogwoods, there's no smartweed, there's nothing. And so this is why I can't let, this is all this stuff, this is honeysuckle. It's way up over my head. I'm 6 feet tall, and they're more than 2 times my height, which puts them over 12 feet. And so my job is to try and keep this invasive species from taking over my landscape. So the previous owner, she actually went past the property line a bit and tore plants out. I don't know if my neighbors like it or not, so I've been kind of leaving it alone if it's past my property line. So you can see a property flag up the hill up there, and there's a property stake right in front of me. That's my marker. So I actually walk pretty infrequently, but like during the summer I won't be out here much. There's a lot of ticks and things out here, but I try to, in the spring and the fall, I try to walk up and down and crisscross, the pattern, just walk up and down the hills and pick out the honeysuckle that I see growing. Honeysuckle as an invasive species is kind of easy to see in the spring. Here's another one. Didn't get the root on that one, but it's probably not worth trying to rip it up. It'll grow back. But I'll have to pull it out next year. Here's some more. Honeysuckle's easy to spot in the spring because it's one of the first plants to kick out its leaves. So it's, weeks ago when I was out here first, this bag that I'm using, oh my gosh, it was full. I had to empty it. Just one pass through the valley, I'd have to empty it. And I've got quite a mound of honeysuckle laying up in a pile up at the top of the hill. I'll have a bonfire. I'll have to burn it. You can't, if you just put it on the ground, it'll start growing again. If you shred it, any pieces of root that are still even slightly intact will grow more plants. So I've settled on burning it. I have a fire pit and I just use it as kindling. I burn it up. So this is a barberry. That's an invasive species. That doesn't belong here in Missouri, but it got here by accident. It's not going to take over. I'm going to leave it alone. Technically I'm an invasive species. I'm not supposed to be here either. My ancestors came from another continent, and so I'm not out to get rid of every single invasive species on the landscape. I'm just trying to keep at bay the ones that are going to ruin it for everybody else. I don't know that if you can see on the camera here, there's just quite a lot of little plants growing. Again, I think that's all the smartweed. It'll grow to about knee height. So by summertime, so right now this is starting to get green here. By summertime, you won't be able to see the leaves. It looks like an oak savanna. The ground will be almost completely covered, and then you'll have sunlight coming through in places, the leaves overhead. The oaks are starting to leaf out now, and so it'll get dark down here during the day because of the shading of the oak trees above. The deer, unfortunately, we have an overpopulation of deer in this neighborhood. There's approximately 100 deer per square mile here, and there should be only about a dozen at the most. So we are way over our capacity, and the deer, unfortunately, don't eat the honeysuckle. If they did, it wouldn't be an invasive species. It would just be here and there, but not everywhere. But the fact that the deer don't eat it is what sets the stage. So the deer do eat a lot of this other stuff. So the other plants actually, the reason the honeysuckle takes over is it's not that it's a super plant. The problem is it doesn't have a predator. There's no bugs or anything eating it. No deer, no herbivores eating it. So as a result, all these other plants, deer forage on them all the time and eat them down, but not the honeysuckle. It just grows however and wherever it is, it just grows. And so as a result, it looks like it's a super plant. It's not. It just doesn't have any predators. That's what often happens with invasive species. When you take a species out of an area, move it to another area, you're not bringing along all the predators and diseases. You're just bringing that species. And so this is the case of honeysuckle. All we have here is the honeysuckle. We don't have the things that eat the honeysuckle. And as a result, the honeysuckle grows out of control. It may be in 10,000 years, deer may change and start eating honeysuckle, but right now they don't do that. So again, if I don't do something, my landscape will look like my neighbor's landscape, which will be all honeysuckle and no small plants. And I want the small plants because they're the food chain for the animals and things that are growing in this area. And I want the animals, I want the snakes, I want the box turtles. And if I'm gonna have that stuff, I gotta get rid of the honeysuckle. So hence the reason I'm out here on this beautiful Earth Day. Oh, this oak got bent, or this dogwood got bent over. I may have to come out here with a splint and put this thing up. You see how it's bent down. I may need to stand this guy back up. It must have been, I bet a tree branch fell on it in the wintertime and bent it down. It's still going, just needs some help. Honeysuckle and dogwood look very similar, so you got to be kind of careful when you're pulling up honeysuckle. You're not pulling up baby dogwoods. Baby dogwoods don't stand much of a chance down here though, because the deer eat them. So as a result, there are baby dogwoods. There's no baby oaks. There should be baby oaks about every 5 feet here. There are none. The deer eat them all. This forest is actually dying. The older trees are slowly dying back, and there's no babies to take their place because the deer eat literally the entire acorn crop and all baby oaks. So that's the one thing that's missing here. And eventually I'll have to come down here and plant acorns and then put fences around them so that they can grow, so the deer can't get them. So like these plants right here, I don't even know the name of them. I'd have to look it up. It's been so long since I've seen them. This is the only place where they're growing in the valley, but they wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the fact that the honeysuckle's gone. So we're almost back out of the valley, almost back up to the top of the hill, and I don't see much honeysuckle up here. I did a pretty good job before of tearing it all out. So I guess I'm going to go ahead and sign off. So, happy Earth Day. I hope you had a great day today. There's still time left to go outside and enjoy before the rain comes. Have fun, and we'll sign off. The hawk was in the background there calling. This is probably what the hawk thinks is its backyard. Talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.